A merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of the heart the spirit is broken. And I've been looking at this verse, or this verse came to mind, and I had to go find it in Proverbs chapter 15, because recently there was a woman, an older woman that I've known for a while, and something she said to me kind of sparked me to look up this verse about the countenance. She said to me, you know, you always kind of look like you're smiling or happy or laughing or maybe even smirking or making fun of people. Is the look on your face every time I see you. And I thought that was funny because another older woman who has known me for a long time said said the opposite of that. She said, you know, you always kind of look pensive. That's the word she used. It kind of struck me. She said, you look pensive. And I remember I kind of reacted in a startled way because she said, that's not a bad thing. I just mean that you're thoughtful or you always have a lot going on in your mind, it seems to me. So these two women have a different impression of me or the look on my face or my expression. When the Holy Bible is talking about the word countenance, it uses it at least 50 times in the King James Bible. It's talking about the face or the facial expression, the countenance. And as I said, I thought it was remarkable that these two women had a different impression of me, very different impressions of me. And I had to think about that. And the only thing I could come up with is, I suppose it depends on who's looking at me. Maybe the people who are more at peace or more content or more happy. I don't really like to use that word because that's a conditional word, but I hope you understand me. They look at me and they can see that in me. And the people who have a lot on their mind, they look at me and other people and they see themselves. They see a reflection of themselves. Maybe they're thoughtful and pensive and depressed. I don't know about all that. I guess I'm a mix of those two things. But anyway, that's what kind of sparked this Bible study or word study of the word countenance in the Bible. You're going to notice with me, I'm not going to present myself as some Bible expert or teacher or preacher. It's just me opening the Bible up and letting it teach me, letting the Holy Spirit show me things, not just trying to use my own intelligence because that's limited. I know a lot of very smart people who are always depending on their own discernment, their natural discernment, their observational skills, and their experience. And they think that's all there is. They shape the whole world around that. Well, then they've made themselves into God now because nothing else matters to them except what they can sense. And of course, they failed or they're wrong. They're flawed in their thinking and their believing. They've made themselves into God. They've made their minds an idol. But that being said, this word countenance is really interesting in the Bible. You remember in 1 Samuel, when they're describing David, the Bible is describing David, and it's describing him as a boy, a young man, as someone with a beautiful countenance. 1 Samuel 16:12. A beautiful countenance and goodly to look to. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. All the other brothers, young men, they were also, I think, physically attractive and probably had some kind of intelligence or speaking skills, people skills, those kind of things. And people liked them. But the Lord was looking at David's heart. And for some reason or somehow, what was in his heart, the kind of person that David was, even as a young man, it came out through his countenance. It showed in his face and his facial expression. That's really deep. You jump over to 1 Samuel 17. David's about to fight Goliath. Goliath looked about and saw David, and he disdained him, for David, was but a youth. David was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. What does he mean by a fair countenance there? What does the Holy Spirit mean by a fair countenance? He's open. He's without guile. Remember, Jesus in the New Testament is talking about one of his disciples, one of his followers, and I believe he described him as someone who was without guile. Basically an honest person. He's an open person, maybe a helpful person. This is the kind of person that David was. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Find me and correct me. I believe that's what the Bible means by he has a fair countenance. That's the same way Tamar one of the daughter of Absalom, Tamar, who got assaulted in the Old Testament there. Well, she was described as a woman of fair countenance. Sounded like she had the same kind of spirit or bearing as David. Just a good, nice person as far as people are good, as far as we can call people good. And the Bible has a lot to say about the countenance. Look in Genesis chapter 4. Cain's offering was not accepted by the Lord, and Cain was very wroth. Genesis 4:5. Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? The way Cain felt, the rejection he felt from the Lord, the guilt he felt over his own sin, it showed on his face. It seems that it starts in your spirit or your heart. And we're not talking about the physical heart there, obviously. Which not the physical heart that beats in your chest and distributes blood through your body. When the Bible is talking about the heart, sometimes it's talking about what makes you you. Your spirit, your thinking, your believing, the way you are. What kind of person are you? This is why you look in Jeremiah 17:9. The heart is deceitful and desperately wicked above all things. Deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Well, it's not talking about your actual heart there. There's something that the Bible is saying when it's talking about heart that's going beyond the muscle in your chest. And whatever is in that spiritual heart it's going to show on your face. It's going to show on your countenance. You'll notice when you see a famous person, a celebrity, singing group, actor, or whoever, and they're doing a photo shoot, and you'll notice the look on their face is so arrogant. It's so full of pride. You ever notice that? And of course, as a young man, entertained by a lot of these folks, I didn't take note of this. But as I got older, that's a turnoff. It's not attractive to see somebody that's that prideful in their look. And most of the famous people you're going to see have it. And then if you go look at random people on social media who are caught up in the entertainment and Hollywood and all that, their faces are looking the same as the Hollywood people. It's because they've taken on the spirit of these people who they're above you. They're entertaining you. They're richer than you. They're more famous than you. They got bodyguards that keep you away from them. Their faces are prideful. We got Psalms chapter 10. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after God. God is not in all his thoughts. That tells me that when you have a prideful, arrogant look on your face, God's not okay with you. Or really, you're not okay with God first. You put him aside. He's not in all your thoughts. You're on your thoughts. How great you are. Or talented or rich or whatever. There's a word, insouciant. It's an interesting word, insouciant. There's a lot of people walking around. There's a lot of, especially women, young women that are walking around today. And again, you can just click on any random person, find a post on social media that has thousands of likes or hearts or reactions or whatever. And then just click on random women's faces that you'll see that have reacted to this post. And a lot of them have insouciant looks on their face. Prideful, arrogant. Look at me. Pig lip kissing the camera, selfies, all that stuff. Well, according to the Bible, according to Psalms 10 right there, God's not okay with that. He said he's calling you wicked. At least in that moment, you're a wicked person. I want my countenance to reflect something that pleases God. How is my countenance, how is my facial expression going to please God? That's because I'm going to be thinking about God. I'm going to be wanting to do what he wants. I'm going to be wanting to speak and act the way he wants me to speak and act. And that's going to make my face softer. It's going to make my countenance fair. Not just attractive, but it's including a lot of other characteristics too, besides just a physical look. It's you're open, you're honest, you're walking uprightly. We all know that Jesus Christ walked uprightly. He always did the will of his Father. The Father was always pleased with him. The Father was always with him. You can see right there in Luke chapter 9, verse 29, is what people call a transfiguration. And Jesus Christ took Peter, John, and James up into a mountain to pray. And as he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment, his clothes, was white and glistering. I didn't even notice I said glistering in the King James Bible until I think yesterday when I'm looking at these things. I always thought it said glistening, but you got to really read. I always say about the King James Bible, you have to actually read what it's saying instead of thinking you know what it says. It's glistering, and it means the same thing as glistening, but it's a different word. Are you paying attention to what you're reading? Well, obviously I wasn't until recently. Jesus's countenance was altered, and even his clothes reflected the glory of God that was on him as he was praying. You know his prayer is going to bear fruit because the Word was with God and the Word was God. Jesus is the living Word made flesh. The glory of God is on him, and it's coming out of his face. It's reflected in his face. Everything. We can't get to that level. But as I say, that's the goal. That's my aim to try. To pray in that way and to walk in that way. God is going to make us full of joy with his countenance.